What is something that you look forward to doing every day? For most people our age, it is eating. Welcome to the tour of foods around the world. We will be taking you on a trip around the world experiencing a different food everywhere we stop. Each corner of the globe enjoys different types of foods. We will be sharing with you the cuisines of cultures that are around the world.
There's nothing I like more in this life than eating great food. From spaghetti to tacos to just regular mac and cheese, I love food. Sadly, on the tour we're about to embark on, we are not going to be talking about regular American comfort food. We'll be talking about interesting foods that other countries see as delicacies. You may find most of them appealing, but you may be surprised where this tour takes us. So sit back and enjoy the ride.
Now we begin our journey in North America. We will talk about Eskimos in Mexico. According to local food guide, Eskimos or ant larvae is a native dish to central Mexico. Eskimos are light-colored eggs and are harvested from maggy plants. They look like pine nuts or white corn kernels. Eskimos can be found in many different foods, including omelets, tacos, or they can be served by itself with a side of tortillas and guacamole. Eskimos are normally fried. They are often pan-fried with spices and butter, and if you fry Eskimos, they are sort of crunchy and have a slightly nutty taste. Next, we will travel to Canada, where they eat a delicious snack called beaver tails. According to SeriousEats.com, a beaver tail is a Canadian pastry. It is deep-fried whole wheat dough that is individually hand-shaped like a respected national symbol in Canada, a beaver tail. It is a sweet pastry served hot with a variety of toppings. Toppings include chocolate hazelnut, cinnamon and sugar, apple cinnamon, maple butter, whipped cream, and many other toppings.
Now we will be moving to Colombia, where they eat big butt ants. And according to Global Post, they're known in Spanish as the hormigas colones. The brown cockroach-sized insects are roasted, salted, and eaten like peanuts. The first loud crackle tastes and feels like popcorn. But by the time the juices spray wildly in your mouth and the filament like legs slide down your throat, there's no mistaking this toasted ant queen. The people of sun-soaked northern Colombia have been eating ants for centuries. They believe that the big butt queen ant is everything from a natural form of Viagra to a protein-rich defense against cancer. Now we'll be moving to Bolivia, where they eat llama brain and tongue. Llamas were used by the ancient civilization in South America. Archaeological evidence indicates that they have been domesticated for approximately 5,000 years. Llama is a popular meat in this part of the world, but eating the brains of an animal can be too much for anyone to take. And its tongue? Well, that might be a little too close for comfort. However, as Bolivia's national animal, the llama is used for everything, including clothing, rituals, and labor, as well as food. In fact, llama brains and tongue is considered to be a tasty delicacy.
Now we travel across the Atlantic Ocean to the great continent of Africa, where we'll be talking about the mopane caterpillar. It's called the mopane caterpillar because it feeds off the leaves of the mopane tree after it hatches in the late summer. When they hatch, they are black with sprinkled with yellow spots all around them. They're most commonly found in the southern tip of Africa, which includes Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. When they are picked, they are picked by hand from the trees by African workers. To help prepare them for eating, they are pinched at the butt to rupture the innards. And they squeeze them out like toothpaste to get rid of all the guts. They are most commonly eaten by drying them on big mopane leaves in the hot African sun. They are a great source of protein, and when they are dried, they are crunchy like chips, and they serve as a nice snack for the indigenous African culture.
If you're grossed out by mopane worms, you probably won't like this beetle called Chatum one bit. According to TravelGround.com, the beetles are served chiefly along the west coast of Africa. This dark-colored bug is eaten dry. Before you get the bugs, you have to catch them. And when they catch them, they have the guts squeezed out of them, and then they are cooked and fried.
Now we're traveling northward into the continent of Europe, preferably Norway, where we will be talking about lutefisk. Lutefisk is a traditional Norwegian delicacy where it takes dried cod dipping it in lye. The lye is an acid, so it disintegrates the bones inside the cod and leaves a gelatinous base of meat. It has some very distinct characteristics, like it has a very rubbery texture, and it just smells terrible. To most people, it tastes just like pickles because it is basically pickled fish. Old Norwegian folklore states that the Vikings, when they went around plundering and burning fishing villages, these big racks of drying fish would get covered with ash, and then it would rain, which replicates the fish being soaked in lye. And then once the Vikings would come back to plunder some more, they would taste this weird-looking, dried-up fish that looked and tasted just like fresh fish, and they would say, "It's not that bad," even though it was terrible. And how it got to the United States was it was brought over here by Norwegian immigrants during the Great Movement in the 1900s. The dish is linked with hardships and courage.
We are now in Italy where they eat casu marzu. According to mentalfloss.com, casu marzu is an illegal Sardinian delicacy, which is a petrified cheese infested with live wriggling maggots. Casu marzu is like a Sardinian cheese, and they make sure that this like cheese fly is put in it to lay their eggs. One traditional method is to drill a hole in the block of cheese and slip in oil to attract the vermin, but the effort isn't always needed. While the maggots originally evolved to scavenge decomposed corpses, they love to devour the cured and fermented foods of Homo sapiens. Having discovered a suitable food supply, a mother will lay hundreds of eggs, which then hatch into a pile of hungry maggots eager to eat their host environment. In the case of casu marzu, these maggots drag themselves through by hooked teeth, which then they release an enzyme during their digestion that causes the cheese fat to petrify. This fermentation process yields a sticky mess, still swarming with the worms and ready to be eaten. In Italy, they also eat stewed oxtail. Sweet.io says that this dish would now be considered a strange food in Italy. It dates back from when every part of the animal killed was used. It was invented in Rome, and they used the scraps of the cheek and the tail of the animal. It is a stew with vegetables, lard, the meat of the animal, and tomatoes, but other ingredients can be added too. The meat is softened by stewing it, and it brings a wonderful flavor to the soup.
Now we will be going to Iceland, where they eat mackerel. And according to Gadling.com, mackerel is fermented, dried, Greenland, or basking shark. This tasty treat is prepared by burying the beheaded and gutted shark in a shallow hole in the ground for 6 to 12 weeks. And unsurprisingly, the end result is considered nauseous to pretty much everyone on the planet aside from Icelanders.
Now we travel east to the continent of Asia. In South Korea, they can eat live octopus. They either eat a whole octopi, but sometimes the octopi is dismembered. If it is dismembered, the tentacles will still move around since each tentacle has a brain of its own. When it's dismembered, you can serve it topped with sesame oil. But when eating an octopus, you have to thoroughly chew it because the suction cups on the tentacle will suction to your mouth or throat, which will then cause you to choke.
Now we'll be moving on to Hong Kong, where they eat chicken testicles. And the tradition of chicken testicles comes from Hong Kong. They are located along the chicken's back near the kidneys. The testes are a male chicken's reproductive glands. Female chickens have an ovary located in the same area. Although not common far in the U.S., chicken testes are frequently eaten throughout Asia. They are usually served in a broth with mushrooms or vegetables, and it is prepared simply. They don't take that long to cook and will be done around 15 to 20 minutes.
Do you need something to wash down that chicken testicles with? Because if so, we're moving to China to talk about snake wine. Don't be confused, it is exactly what it sounds like. According to telegraph.co.uk, the snake wine is a delicacy in China and is the process of putting a full snake into a barrel of rice alcohol or wheat alcohol. It has such a high alcohol content that you can only enjoy it in small doses like whiskey or vodka. The first record of drinking this was all the way back in the Zhou dynasty, which was around 1046 BC. Any type of snake will work, but the Chinese prefer snakes that were venomous, like the keelbacks, the kraits, the cobras, the sea snakes, the sea kraits, the coral snakes, and mostly the vipers and the pit vipers. Most people in China didn't drink this to get buzzed. They drank it for their medicinal purposes. In ancient China, they drank it because they believed it had special healing powers. From one glass of this stuff can cure as much as farsightedness to hair loss, and maybe even increase your sex drive. It often is illegal in most countries because the cobra is part of the endangered species list.
Next, we travel to Taiwan where they eat duck tongue. According to the domesticmail.com, duck tongue is a very common dish in Taiwan. Duck tongue is very different from what you think it would be. It is thought to be as thick, muscle-like, and dense, but is more tender and juicy. In the middle, there is a tender bone or cartilage, and most people just eat the whole cartilage and the tongue. You can get them very cheap. You can get a pack of tongues of 50 to 60 tongues for less than $10. Lots of people fry their tongues with salt and pepper.
Now in Vietnam, they eat raw blood soup. According to allwomenstock.com, raw blood soup is known as Tiet Con, and it is very common in poor rural communities in North Vietnam, where it is usually eaten for breakfast. They either use the fresh blood of ducks, geese, and sometimes even pigs. The blood is then put into the fridge to cool and is then served with either fresh herbs or peanuts sprinkled on top.
Next, we go to Australia where they eat witchetty grub. According to bushfoodaustralia.com, witchetty grub is the best-known bush food in Australia. A bush food is any food or natural resource that is native to Australia. Bush foods can also be used for medicines. Witchetty grub is only found in Central Australia. It is the larva of a moth and have a similar taste to scrambled eggs. You can find witchetty grub in the root system of a witchetty bush. Not every bush will have them, and you can also find them in a bloodwood tree. Another food in Australia is the kangaroo. According to JonahKnowsGoodFood.com, kangaroo is very common these days in Australia. So common you can find it in a local supermarket in Australia. Kangaroo is known to be very healthy. It is very high in protein and is low in fat, which people think is why it got to become so popular. It has 1 calorie per gram, and the meat is very similar compared to beef. It has a consistency similar to beef, but is more dense. There is no fat running through it, unlike beef does, and kangaroo steaks taste good in barbecue sauce.
If you thought you had to travel all across the world to taste these amazing foods, you better think again. We are now under a tour in our very own United States to talk about Rocky Mountain oysters. Like I said in my last topic, you should be confused with this one, because these Rocky Mountain oysters aren't oysters at all. They're actually bull calf testicles. The description of these are they're chewy, and they apparently, to some people, either taste like chicken or they taste like liver. How they're prepared is they strip the skin off them, they flatten them with a rolling pin, then they bread them and deep fry them just like fried chicken. The history of this, it dates back to the Old West, back when every part of an animal was used. Castration of bulls was very common during this time, and with the surplus of all the bull testicles, the ranchers decided to eat them because it became a vital source of their survival. They also sometimes would use sheep testicles instead of bulls when sheep were more common than bulls.
We have just shown you many different foods from many different cultures from around the world. Now that we have taken you on a tour of food around the world, you might want to try some of these foods.
With all the different cultures around the world, there may be some differences in the cuisines that people dine on, but they all share a common ground, a passion for food.
Oh my god, I love that.